Hello, my friends. I'm Kayla, and you are Julie, Millicent, Isabel, Madison, William. Those are the friends of the video. If you're not already subscribed and I said your name, you have to subscribe. That's the law. I forgot to shout out certain people last month, and one person in the comments remembered, and they were like, okay, let's talk about July. My orange notebook is clashing with my red shirt. Will we all survive? July was my largest reading month of the year so far. I hit 25 books, which was my average last year. This year I've been doing a lot of like 15 book months, 20 book months, which don't get me wrong, I know is like more than a normal person. But yeah, I hit 25. I apparently had a lot more free time, I guess. Well, Liam was out of school and we pulled him out of summer hockey. So I guess we're just chilling. I guess I wanted to make a lot of content this month, so I did that. What should we talk about in the little stat board? I only had one 5-star read of the month, even though I read 25 things, which is kind of ridiculous. But I did have 14 4-stars, which is great. And then a couple 2s and 1s. Mostly physical books, as usual, a good amount of mix. Like I tried out a lot of audiobooks. I didn't really love any of them. I do a superlative category at the end once I go through all of my ratings. And then the 3 books at the end I haven't reviewed for you. I'm going to do that here. And then we go through superlatives like best audiobook, best book in general, best cover. And I don't know if I have a favorite audiobook, but I'll ponder it. Mostly new to me authors. Mostly books that were borrowed, shout out to the library, and then an even split of things I bought and things I already owned. Like I read 6 things off of my physical TBR this month, which feels powerful. I mostly read fantasy, but I also read a good chunk of mystery and horror, and then a couple other things sprinkled in there, like a romance and a sci-fi and nonfiction. My average rating was a 3.5, I think. I haven't done the math, but I think it's a 3.5. If it's not, you know, editing Kayla has fixed that. If you haven't watched a wrap up in a minute, If you haven't watched a wrap up in a minute, I just go through all of the books I already reviewed in videos and remind you of my rating. Alice in Wonderland, I gave 2 stars. Somebody commented and said that like I didn't understand the book or I would have given it a higher rating, which, you know what? I appreciate everyone who comments on my videos. So I have nothing to say about that actually. The book that wouldn't burn, I gave a 3.75, I think. This says I gave it a 4, but I'm pretty sure I gave it a 3.75. I have forgotten a lot about this book. It wasn't the most memorable for me, but I had a decent time while I was reading it, and I get why other big fantasy fans like it. I read The Cruel Prince, which was a choice that I made. Somehow I haven't read it in the last, 7 years that it has been just obsessed over by the people. This I gave a 3.5 apparently. The fact that I gave these such a similar rating, I feel like is a little offensive to this book. Anyway, I read a bunch of romantasy. Let's see, my least favorite was Behooved, which I gave 1 star, one of my only ones of the year. A Letter to the Luminous Deep, thought I would like more, gave it a 2. Oh my god, a 2 point something? A 2.5. Sorcery and Small Magics, I gave a 4. A Feather So Black, I gave a 4.25. And Paladin's Grace, I gave a 4.5. Direct Descendant is also fantasy, but it's and romance, but it's getting more into the horror realm. Like technically I think it's cozy horror, but it's fantastical, like urban fantasy. And I gave this one a 3. This one I gave a 2.5, The Starving Saints. Very unique, interesting premise, but it didn't really work for me. When the Wolf Comes Home, we're getting into horror now. This one, the most unique premise, super interesting. I actually think that should be maybe that should be one of my superlatives. Most unique thing. By Nat Cassidy. I gave this a 4. Some lower rated horror, Camp Damascus. Definitely understand people's love for. This one was a 3.5. I Can Fix Her, this little horror kind of novella. I gave a 3, I think. Then horror that's getting into the sci-fi realm is Walking Practice. This was my only 5-star of the month. It's this little novella. I had a really good time with it. I started out not liking it and then it became a favorite by the end. My members have an entire live show dedicated to it where my friend Erin and I were reading it together in a couple sprints, and it was wild seeing the change in our thoughts throughout it. And then just sci-fi or dystopian futuristic, Future Home of the Living God by Louise Erdrich. I think I gave a 4. It's one of those books that feels like an objective 4. I'm like, yeah, it's a 4. I feel the same about Who is Maud Dixon. Like both of those were a 4 in the moment, and now I'm like, maybe a 3.75. Then we've got some mysteries. So a couple sequels. This is A Murderous Relation, the 5th book in the Veronica Speedwell series, 4 stars. No One Was Supposed to Die at the Wedding, the sequel to Every Time I Go on Vacation Someone Dies, also a 4 star. Had a good time with sequels, so that's always nice. And then more mysteries. I read a good amount of mysteries. Are you proud of me? This one is more fiction, but it does have some mystery elements. No One Dies Yet, Copy Ben Ben. And then, like I said, Who Is Maud Dixon, a 4. And then History Lessons was also a 4. Then I had one romance read this month, Mrs. Nash's Ashes by Sarah Adler. I did read a lot of romance, but it was in fantasy settings, so it feels weird to say this is my only romance. Oh, and then one I didn't have. I read another nonfiction, How to Use Your Psychic Powers to Get Rich or something. That one was a 3 star, which I think is kind of surprising because it's old, it's a little stupid, but I didn't have the worst time reading it, which was a bit of a surprise. And usually like the self-help kind of books are not for me. But if you didn't watch the video where I read this and then I won the lottery, that was probably like my favorite video I've put out in a while. Now let's talk about the 3 things I haven't yet spoken about. I just finished the live show for With a Vengeance, so if you watched that, you know it was 4 stars. I haven't spoken about either of these 2 things. This is Black in Blues. It's a nonfiction collection of essays. I also gave this 4 stars. And then Strange Pictures, I also gave 4 stars. A decent reading month in regards to these. Let's start with a Vengeance. So this is the story of Anna. Something happened to her family. These 6 people specifically are responsible. They were colluding in some type of way to bring down her family. There's been a trial, there's been some reckoning. She gets certain information that proves that these 6 people did this horrible thing and ruined her family. So she's inviting them all on this train ride. It's set in 1942. No, the original thing happened in 1942. Now we're in 1954, I want to say. And she's invited all of these people onto the train to confront them. And then also at the end of the 13-hour train ride, she has the FBI ready to arrest them all, and she sent all of her proof to the FBI. So no matter what happens on this train ride, she will get her vengeance by the end. She doesn't want them to die. She wants them to live with this guilt and wants them to really pay and hate their lives for the rest of their lives and rot in prison. When she gets everyone on the train though and starts to talk to all of them, which is like, why would she do that? Why would she just like lock herself away in a room and they can all just exist there and then meet with the authorities? She talks to them, she hangs out with them, she confronts them, and you know, bad things start to happen. Somebody dies, that's in the synopsis, and now she's like, I want my revenge. And now there's a killer on board who might take out all of these people, so I have to now protect them in order to get my proper vengeance. That was one example of Anna doing things that I wouldn't necessarily do, and it seems to be the common consensus that Anna is a character who is interesting to read from in that she's made up this whole plan. She knows what she wants to do. She's had months of preparation, but she is making a lot of mistakes and she doesn't always make the decisions you would as the reader. So if you want someone who's like really strong-willed and intelligent and successful, this might not be for you. But if she was all of those things, this would be a completely different book because a lot of things go wrong and there's a lot of mysteries and a ton of reveals. And it's not necessarily Riley Sager's most like extravagant or well-plotted, shocking book. Like, it's none of those things. But I just had a really interesting time. Every single reveal got me, or I predicted it maybe a chapter before. So it felt very satisfying to read. I didn't find this slow. There's many chapters of each individual character of the 6 that she invites, their backstory, and a little bit about them all. And I just found it so fascinating to learn about everybody and why they were going to be on the train to begin with. But apparently a lot of people are finding that to be a drawn out experience they weren't really into. And then I liked it because it just got wild and crazy and people were running around and, you know, who was working together, who wasn't, there was somebody else on the train we don't know about. There were so many questions and I think it was ridiculous for a lot of people and just felt silly. I had quite a good time. So if you're wondering if you should read this, the general public says no. This already, only a couple months after release, is the lowest averagely rated Riley Sager. People are not into this. But if, like me, you often have a lot of unpopular opinions to the general public, then I would say go ahead and read it. Then we've got Black and Blues. If you know me, well, you know that I love things like this, a collection of essays that comments or critiques culture. And in this one specifically, it's about how the color blue has shown up or is very prevalent in Black folks' lives and like history. The essays are quite short. Like, this is how long one of them is. Like, that was just 3 pages. There are some that are longer, and then there's some beautiful images in here as well. For example, she talks about literature that she's grown up with, like Beloved by Toni Morrison, or Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, and how there are certain quotes, mentions of blue within the text. And then there's certain things that she's uncovered in her like research for this book or prior to that, where she came across one of the few pieces of writing from somebody, an actual African in the transatlantic slave trade, who spoke about their experience and how the color blue was in there somewhere. Like people's love of blue garments or the blue sea that a lot of people were choosing to jump into or were thrown into. There was one essay about a philosopher who was justifying slavery by talking about how the enslaved clearly are not civilized because they prefer these blue beads rather than gold. It talked about the cultivation, is that the right word? Of indigo, colonization in Liberia, little bits of history and how the color blue has impacted different people, how in a lot of posters that are attempting to catch the formerly enslaved, how a lot of times you would see on a poster that they were wearing blue garments. They were described by wearing blue, like a lot of people. And then a lot of just random blue anecdotes that were so interesting, like about blue jays and how they have a certain like cell structure that we see blue when we look at them, and how their black wings, it's actually melanin that is pigmenting them. I just thought this was so interesting, well constructed. There are a couple things that I tabbed. This is a library book, but I just liked how this was intentional by Imani Perry to talk about struggle and difficulty, but also talk about joy and beauty and the love of things. And she specifically called that out. Gardening was especially precious as a pleasure that flourished despite captivity and cruelty. It is a delicate thing to say. Every time you allow for joy, it seems to invite those who say it wasn't that bad. It was horrific, and still there was joy. Telling the whole truth, including delight, should not absolve the nation of its shame. It should make the indecency even more apparent. Oh, there was also a whole essay that talked about the art on the cover and the painting and where that came from. Frequently, Black people speak of being haunted by the past, slavery, conquest, Jim Crow, colonialism, but the artists teach us people of today to haunt the past, to whisper to the ancestors and rearrange the materiality of their lives with our care, to show them they are respected and loved. A haunt is a place we frequent. To haunt is to trouble or frequent somewhere. We haunt the past to refuse to let it lie comfortably as it was. We give back to them in return for the inheritances they have bestowed upon us. I really recommend this. I think most people would enjoy it. I wish this was a whole series. Like, obviously there are different colors that are really important to different cultures. I could just see this being a series of books that I would just love to read, where they talk about how different colors have popped up in different moments in time. And then lastly, we have Strange Pictures by Uketsu. This I've just seen a lot of people talking about lately, and I wanted to know. I wanted to see what everyone was talking about, because some people hate it and some people love it. I heard that it was just a bunch of pictures, or it's a traditional narrative, but like there's a lot of pictures in it and you can piece together things by looking at the pictures a different way. And I thought that was a really interesting premise. So I will tell you the first story in here. It's split up into 4 main like chapters or stories. It's a thriller kind of horror book. There are mysteries and there are clues to put together. The first story follows these 2 men as they come across a blog. And the blog has this series of images, and the blog writer, the blogger, is talking about how he pieced together these images to understand something. There was a tragedy that happened, and he was saying in the blog, oh, now I understand why this all happened because I put together the images. And the 2 men who are talking about the blog are also trying to put together the images and try to understand what the blogger is talking about. So it's a mystery for the blogger, it's a mystery for those characters, and it's a mystery for us because we get this series of images that this person person drew. And there's something like hidden in them. There's some kind of larger meaning and understanding that you can have if you stare at them for long enough. I don't really think that it's meant for you to totally figure out. It's not like if you look at the images long enough, you can piece together the story, but because the people have a little more context and like put the clues together as the story goes on, like they understand how the pictures work. And there's no real way for you to completely grasp the entire story just by looking at the pictures. And that's what I thought the book was. I thought it was like, if you look at these pictures long enough, like I can figure it out, and then I'll read the book and I'll get the satisfying answer that I was right and I pieced together the clues like the characters did. I don't think it's really for you to piece together. It's just a moment for you to go, oh, I didn't see that. Like I didn't notice that. I would have never connected that, and they do. And it's a really interesting situation. The 4 stories felt pretty disconnected. Like they stood alone. They were all kind of like that. There was an image that somebody found at a crime scene, and there were holes in the paper, and they were trying to figure out why there were holes in the paper or whatever. They feel independent until they don't. And I just love that. I was gonna give it maybe a 3, and then once I understood the whole story, it was definitely a 4. And I appreciate what this book was doing, and I think it's really cool. It's not an oh my god shock, biggest plot twist I've ever seen kind of book, because you get such limited time with the stories and with the characters that it's not really like that. It's more of a, oh, like that's really interesting. That's really cool how the author did that. So I don't know who specifically to recommend this to. It is an immersive experience, which is fun. And I don't know, I'm just really glad that I picked it up, and I will grab the other ones for sure. So yeah, 4 stars to everything that I didn't previously talk to you about. And now let's do a couple superlatives. The first one I always do is best book, which is obvious to you because I just told you it was my only 5-star, and that's Walking Practice. I really like when a book plays with my expectations, when it starts out just seeming like it's going to be one thing and it's not going to be that thoughtful, and then it turns into a lot of commentary on gender, chronic pain, and whatever else was all encompassed in here. It's about an alien who starts to consume people. It is disgusting. God, it just handled everything so well. Best sequel, like I already told you, both of these were 4 stars, so I have to give them a tie. I enjoyed both of these as sequels, which I don't always. Best audiobook. Okay, I did actually think while I was talking about them, because I specifically read both of these because Mara Wilson recommended them to me, as she is the narrator of both of them, I would say these were both good audiobook experiences. I love her as a narrator. I don't think they did anything like crazy impressive, but they were good, solid audiobooks. So if you're planning on reading either of these, would recommend the audiobook. Biggest surprise, I'm gonna say Paladin's Grace, because I don't give T. Kingfisher super high ratings all the time. I tend to give her a 3-star more often than not. And I gave Sword Heart a 4, and that's what most people compare this to. And I do understand that, like, I gave this a 4.5, which is barely above that. But in my soul, I feel like I liked this significantly more than Sword Heart. And when people compared it to that, I was like, okay, it's just gonna be like a 4-star, a 3.5, like average experience. I just think this was so well done. This was like almost a perfect romantasy adventure for me. Biggest disappointment is next. I don't think it's really fair for me to say The Starving Saints because I've only read Caitlin Starling one other time and I gave it pretty much the same rating. So I shouldn't have had high expectations for this, but because of the cover and the synopsis, and her writing is so interesting and her concepts are so unique, that I was just committed to this being a new favorite of the year, but it was only like a 2 something. And then I'm gonna say Letters to the Luminous Deep. There was quite a few books that I read this month that I liked less, right? But like, I had no expectations for this. So to be disappointing, it has to be something that I wanted to read, not something that was just selected for me, I feel. And Letters to a Luminous Deep was suggested to me quite a few times over the years. I borrowed it from the library and gave it back without reading it. And I just figured when I do, it's gonna be great. It's an epistolary story. A bunch of people living underwater. Some people go missing. They're figuring out things about sea creatures. But yeah, I didn't like the writing of it. Everyone kind of sounded the same and it was disappointing. I don't even know how to explain what The Starving Saints did that made me not like it, because I usually like a fever dream story. I just could not find anything to enjoy really about that, but I still really appreciate how it was written and what the story actually was. The book that I'll recommend most, oh gosh, actually it's not that hard. It's When the Wolf Comes Home. I think that there are some people who will pick this up thinking it's a wolf, a werewolf. It's going to be really dude bro horror. It's going to be really like raw and crazy. And that's not what it is. It is definitely action packed, but it's far more unique of a concept and it's more fairy tale-esque. And I think this is just going to be like the horror darling of the year. I really do. An author I'm planning to read more from now, I think Chuck Tingle, because I read some of his silly smutty stuff and I have never like really wanted to pick up his horror. I think it's because I thought based on the cover and the vibes that it was going to be far more extreme horror. And I don't know if I'm mixing him up with another author or what, but now I'm very much intrigued to, also because I've DNF'd something from him. So I just didn't have the highest expectations. And I did only get this at 3.5, but I'm excited to read more from him. Best cover. Best cover is Paladin's Grace, but not the one I actually read. It's the one that I just ordered from Waterstones because I think this is very cute. Best title. Best title is also best cover. I think this cover is beautiful, but I really like the title, Black and Blues. I think it's just saying a lot of things with so few words. It's implying a lot of different things. And then also it's just like what the book is, that there's so much black in blues. Like every single mention of blue is rooted in her blackness and people's blackness. And I just think it's like perfectly titled. Then favorite character. Oh my God, I actually have a favorite character. I never have a favorite character. For one, I need to say Veronica and Stoker because I always want to say Veronica and Stoker, but if I haven't read them that month, I can't say it. They're my favorite couple. I love them. I love their dynamic. I love everything they do together. They're perfection. But also Grace. I loved learning about her job as a perfumer. I find that in so many books, we get introduced to a character's job and then we don't see them in that job. We don't see them talk about that job, even if it's like their greatest passion. And I love the mundane tasks associated with people's careers. So the fact that we get to see her like going around the forest and foraging for scents to put together the perfect smells. And then multiple times she'll use her scent knowledge to like solve a mystery or something. I just like loved her as a character. I loved her as a perfumer and I had a really good time reading this one. So those are all my superlatives. That's everything that I read. You saw my stats, my favorites. Wish me luck in August for even more wins. I'm still like, I don't know if I truly don't know if it's me or if it's the books that I'm picking that I cannot find more 5 stars. I'm struggling a little bit, like my percentage is so low. As always, I feel like every single time I post any video, I'm like, please somebody give me some recommendations. I've been getting a lot lately and I've appreciated so many of them and I will be reading them. So maybe you shouldn't because I already have a lot going on. My mental TBR is growing by the minute. So let me know like what your favorite read of July was. I want to feel your joy. And if you read any of these or if you're planning to now or I steered you away from them, I would love to know that too. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you next time.